there, Heike Yitz here, and welcome to another episode of the Pursue Your Spark podcast. Welcome to any new listeners, and please go over to the Apple Podcast and subscribe. This way, you won't miss out on any future episodes. And for everybody listening, please leave a review on the Apple Podcast. This will help the show to grow and more people to find our show. Also, if you are just starting out your fitness journey or you want to tune up your fitness lifestyle, I got your back. I have my freebie, the 5-Spark Lifestyle Planner for you. I will leave a link in the show notes so you can grab your free copy right here on the show. Today's guest is an amazing woman. She's a former fighter pilot, and she got very ill and found no help with her medical issues in the medical system. Today, she's sharing her story of how she had to fight the medical system to save herself. Today's guest is Chandra Beckman. She's part of the elite group of women who have flown United States Air Force fighter jets. She's now retired from the U.S. Air Force, but while on active duty, she flew T-37, T-38, F-15C, F-117A, and T-6A military aircraft. And in her personal time, the Piper PA-28 Cherokee, Cessna 172, and Beechcraft Sierra C-24R civilian aircraft. And today, we're talking about why a fighter pilot had to dismiss the medical system to save herself. Welcome to the show, Chandra.
Thank you, Heike. I'm so happy to be here today with you.
It is so exciting. I'm looking at all these numbers of airplanes. I'm going, whoa, I have no idea what that means, but it's so cool.
Thank you.
So also, as you know, I have a cold, so I have my sexy Heike voice. So when the listeners hear me speak, it's not my normal voice, but I didn't want to miss out on sharing this amazing interview. But we met at Heroic Public Speaking with Michael and Amy Port, which was so awesome.
It was, and it was such an opportunity for me to be able to work with you and the other ladies that we had in the group, just working on our stories and how to share and how to inspire others to make changes in themselves and in the world that they live in.
Yeah, and I've heard about your story, and so I wanted to share your story with my listeners. But most of all, why did you become a fighter pilot?
Well, I saw the movie Top Gun, I think it was about 1986, and I was 6th grade, and I was just attracted to the drive, the dedication, the passion, determination, the speed, of course, and I think always performing at the edge of limits, the challenges that were portrayed, and I've always been one that embraces challenges. And so I set my sights on that.
What did your family think when you said, I'm going to be a fighter pilot?
I'm not sure I shared it with anyone. I had no idea how to get there. At the time, we moved around a lot when I was young. And so I didn't know the path. And my dad had always encouraged the boys, my brothers, to look at machinery and go look at the air shows and watch race car races. And it wasn't really the girls in the family that were encouraged to do that. Oh. Not that we were excluded, but it wasn't like, he'd say, hey, let's go look at this today. It was usually the guys that would go out and do that. So
yeah, I remember that from I grew up too. It's like, it was so boring to me to learn knitting and cooking. Back then we had housekeeping classes. I'm like, the guys do all these cool stuff with those. They're building things. I'm like, why do I have to learn to cook?
I was not a fan of cooking either, so I completely understand that.
So you started your career and you flew all these amazing airplanes and jets. And then what happened?
Yeah, so I had flown for 8 years and I was in a job where I wasn't required to fly. We were stationed overseas and I started coming down with some really strange symptoms. and things like shortness of breath. And at the time, I was living on the second floor of the building, and I was walking to and from work. It took about 10 minutes, but I would start getting more and more fatigued just walking that 10 minutes. And by the time I got home and had to climb 2 flights of stairs, I would often have to stop in the middle to rest. And when I'd get to the top of the 2 flights of stairs, I'd be so winded. And sometimes I'd get gray. It wasn't just that. I was working out. Of course, I had lifted weights since I was a junior in high school. So workout was part of my routine, but I was working out and I was getting weaker, like literally going backwards in the number of sit-ups I could do. I had an attitude shift. I, had been optimistic. We can do anything type attitude. And I had started being grumpy and a little bit snippy about things. And I started having issues with food and dairy in particular. I had some blurriness in my right eye, and I was becoming more and more fatigued. And as a pilot, you don't want to go to the doctor because doctors can prevent you from flying. So I kind of just watched. Go ahead.
You went from super healthy and highly functioning to some health issues that you had no idea what happened.
Exactly. And I kind of just watched him. And about 4 months into that, I said, okay, my next job is going to be going back to fly in the aircraft. And I think there's something seriously going wrong here. Obviously, my physical strength was going backwards. So I probably wouldn't have the capability if this continued. And so I visited the doctor there and gave her my list of symptoms and shared with her what was going on. And her response to me was, "You miss your kids. You'll be fine when you get back to the States." Yeah, literally. I was so angry, I wanted to punch her in the face.
I can totally see that. I was like, really? That's not an answer to my solution to my problem.
Right. Little did I know at the time that was really the bookend that began my journey with the conventional medicine world. And I walked out of her office, and she did help me, get some care for my vision. But that continued to be an ongoing battle throughout my entire time because the eyes were never stable. So, yeah, it was a very, very difficult start.
So where did you go from there? You said, okay, you can't help me. You helped my eye. But what were some of the challenges surrounding the medical providers that you had to deal with, or how to figure out where you go from where you have these health issues, but what's next? Where do I go? How do I get better?
Exactly. Now, that was early 2008 when that occurred, and we left that station and moved back to the States mid-2008. And my health issues continued. I had went back to flying and was struggling both because of the physical, well, really because of the physical aspect. And then by then it had become somewhat an emotional aspect because this is, my life is falling apart around me and no one can help. There were doctors along the way that were pivotal that I was able to approach, and they would look at me and realize, this is a high functioning individual. This person is not making this up. And they would assist me as much as they could. Unfortunately, those doctors were far and few between.
Yeah.
Or few and far between. And it was very, very frustrating.
Now, you said they were
navigate that.
She's making this up. You're making up your symptoms. What was the clue to that? I mean, describe that.
I believe that it is common for women, especially. And now men are starting to face it. But when you walk into the medical community and they don't have the answer, and within the system, it seems that the answer is, well, this person has some psychological issues and they are affecting their physical body, so they need to go see a counselor about this. And in reality, and what I know now on this end of it, the opposite is true. Oftentimes there's a physical aspect going on that is causing mental and emotional stress. Mm-hmm. And when we can solve that physical issue, the mental and emotional stress disappears.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. So as you started going through different approaches, tell us more about it. Tell us how did you figure out what's actually happening to you?
So that actually didn't occur until 9.5 years into my journey. And I had been through Wilford Hall. They had done a complete workup. And Wilford Hall was the Air Force's top medical hospital.
Mm-hmm.
They had done a complete workup there. And I had also then been referred to the Mayo Clinic. And the Mayo Clinic had done their complete workup, finding very little that they could treat given their diagnostic testing. And so for me, it was a very, very, very frustrating time because I am living in 4 to 8 level pain every single day. And physical dysfunction, as in my physical strength is disappearing. And I'm having things like neurological issues where I'm carrying an object in my hand and all of a sudden it drops. I've never set the signal for my hand to let go of that object, but it would drop. And so the neurological symptoms began. And over the years, I was picking up various coping strategies. So it would appear sometimes that nothing was wrong with me, yet I've got layers of coping strategies to be able to effectively show up to work and be functional. 9.5 years later, my health crashed again to the point where I was spending 2, 3, 4 days a month in bed because I didn't have the strength and energy to get out of bed. I couldn't work more than half a day. And I knew I was going to have to go back into the conventional medical system for help. And throughout that time, I had pursued different options, like acupuncture, chiropractic care, things that weren't provided through the military healthcare. And I had found some relief and some progress in those, yet nothing to say, okay, this is what's causing all of the things that are going on with you. When my health crashed, I went back into the medical system requesting help. And this is really where my fight began. Supposedly, I had been diagnosed with fibromyalgia years earlier in about 2009. And they had just put that label on there because they didn't know what was going on. And so as I went back into the medical system, I was attempting to get care to get to the root cause. Let's figure out what's going on. It's now late 2015, early 2016. And I was begging the doctor to help me, begging him to partner with me to figure this out. After about 3 appointments, he looks at me and he says, listen, you have fibromyalgia. You're going through a low point. Externally, I remained very calm. I thanked him, left his office. But internally and in my brain, at the time that he said that to me, I said some very choice words, starting with F and ending with U. I am not staying in your medical system to die. And that was what mentally went through my body. And at that point, I started turning to other sources of healthcare. The fight within the military medical system to get the care I needed was excruciating. And the doctors that I needed, based on my research, some of them actually took the insurance that we had, except I was an active duty member, so I was not allowed to go to them. And I fought this for actually about 3 or 4 months, and finally it got to the point where I said, okay, I cannot waste energy on this. I am not living anymore. I'm spending more and more time in bed. It's time to take matters in my own hands. And I started paying cash for my doctors.
That is frustrating to say the least. It's like they don't take your insurance, basically?
Well, it was because I was an active duty member and I had a certain branch of the insurance. If I had been my spouse or my kid, I could take them to the doctors that I was trying to see and have some coverage. But I was not allowed to do that in the system I was in. There are ways that active duty members could get there, but I didn't have the energy to fight that at the time. And so fortunately, my husband and I were able to pay cash for my appointments, and I got in to see functional medicine doctors and integrative medicine providers who are aware of the vast array of options available, and they're not stuck within the conventional medical system that uses the insurance companies. And so overall, what I learned throughout this, and if I had known this going through, it would have been a little bit easier, but I learned that the doctors are stuck within a system and not allowed to pursue other options. And it's not their fault. Most of them care about people. They want to help, but there's only so many options they can present. There's only so many options they can provide. And in reality, they aren't educated on the other options. So as I get out into the functional and the integrative medicine worlds, I realize, oh my goodness, our healthcare in America is broke.
Yeah.
At that time, though, I had to focus on how do I get better? And so the doctor that I had been fighting to see, the functional medicine doctor, diagnosed me on my very first appointment.
On the very first appointment?
Very first appointment. So here I had been fighting for 9.5 years within a medical system, both military and conventional American medical system. And I get to see her, and within 35 minutes, she tells me, "You have Lyme disease. Why is no one seeing this?" It was a relief on one hand to me, because finally I have something that I can start working towards fixing. Little did I know the battle that would ensue to get treatment for that. And, oh, by the way, the treatments don't necessarily work. So it's, amazing. Finally, I have a starting point.
But everybody is so different with how they probably react to the treatment.
Exactly.
And when you go back, Chandra, because when I think about tick and Lyme disease, is that everybody looks for the bullet, what is it called? The bullseye or the bite or the something like this. So you hadn't noticed anything unusual on your skin that would point you in that direction.
No, I hadn't. And unfortunately, what can also occur is that people can carry the bacteria for years without the disease ever manifesting into symptoms. And it's because your immune system can handle the load. It can keep you healthy because it's able to take care of that. But when other factors are introduced, which is what happened in my case, you become symptomatic, and it can create a whole world of actually a nightmare.
So when you found this functional medicine doctor and she diagnosed you with Lyme, what happened next?
Well, that's when I began the healing journey. And I was able to work with a doctor within the medical realm, military medical realm, Dr. Lee Church. He's amazing. And I was assigned to him, and he helped me navigate the worlds between getting the care I could through the insurance and being someone I could bounce off the ideas that I was pursuing within the integrative and functional medicine world. Because those were all brand new options to me as well. Mm-hmm. And, he asked me, how do I best support you? How can I help? And I think my response to him was something like, please just make sure I don't do anything dangerous.
Oh, that's an interesting fact.
Yes, because, I had grown up in the conventional world as well. And so it was a leap for me to be trying things that I was not aware of, that doctors within the conventional realm were not aware of, but it had to be done. Yeah. And specifically with tick-borne illness, I actually was put on 4 months of IV antibiotics. And so every morning I had to administer that antibiotic. And let me tell you, the treatment as you go through it can be worse than living with what you were living with before.
Oh, wow. And
it was at that point when I became bedridden on many days, homebound for most of the days. And that occurred and it happened for about 8 months straight. At the same time, we're exploring the herbal options because antibiotics don't work long-term for most people. They have to be repeated usually. And so often people have found the most relief with the herbals. That was not the case for me. Herbals and I don't get along. So it's really important for people to understand that individuals have to figure out what works for them. There's the pharmaceuticals, there's the herbals, there's homeopathic, which gets into the energy realm, and then there's energy healing options, most of which are not paid for by your insurance. Yeah. For me personally, we found that the energetic healing options worked best and the pharmaceuticals worked best with the homeopathic. The herbals, natural, I could not tolerate.
What were some of the side effects that you had from that?
The most intense side effects I had were while we were treating parasites, which those commonly occur in people with chronic illness and definitely with people with tick-borne illness. And the side effects of that: intense depression, intense pain, fatigue like you wouldn't believe. And one of the most important things you can do while you're going through that is detox. Mm-hmm. I spent 2 to 3 days a week in the infrared sauna for about 40 minutes each session. Lemon water, clean eating, nutrition was the foundation for my healing. Without that, I would not be here today.
That is tough. I can see when you're trying to get better, but everything that supposedly makes you feel better makes you actually feel worse. That it's got to be so hard to have faith in treatments and continue going that route, wanting to get better.
It is difficult, and a lot of people give up. I think the fact that I have a drive, I'm always looking to make things better. The research and information that is available to us now, even in 2016, when I started researching things and asking that doctor to help me, I was armed with so much information. I think I probably overwhelmed him. And that was not available in 2009 when I first tried to do my own research. And so just having that information available, knowing that I was going to be going through those things, and having support groups on Facebook are incredibly important for people going through any kind of chronic illness. Those Facebook support groups were, without a doubt, a great place to get information, a great place to know that you're not alone. Because most of the people that are dealing with this kind of illness, they're stuck in their house. They don't have the energy to get out. So their social life has decreased to being non-existent. People do have to be careful with those, though, since we're on that topic. You don't want to get stuck in the support groups because oftentimes it can bring you down. And so I would go on there, get the information I needed, maybe leave a few encouraging notes for people, share maybe something I've learned, and then I would get off.
Yeah, I can see that people get so desperate, and then it becomes their only outlet for communication. And also sometimes I find that there's all these, try this, try that, what works. And I'm a little hesitant with that because I'm like, what do you really know? What was your research when it came to that? But I can see the community aspect of it is a big help.
It is. And you kind of brought up a topic there that is very important. It's that experimenting, right?
Yeah.
And unfortunately or fortunately, we are all unique. And so we don't know what works for us until we try it.
Yep.
And you use your own intuition and your body's signals to know whether or not that particular treatment or that particular item, which could be as simple as drinking some water with lemon in it.
Yeah.
You have to actually really try those out. And it's a huge trial and error. And my entire life, has been devoted to it since I got properly diagnosed.
Mm-hmm. Do you still see the doctor that you initially saw?
I don't, actually. She's a very, very fantastic lady. However, as you're going through your healing journey, you will need different types of treatment. And the treatments that I ended up needing to pursue, she did not offer in her office. And so I've had to move on to different doctors. And that's something to realize too, is that it can get very frustrating to people when they go and they're like, well, great, I don't have any more answers from this doctor. And they'll oftentimes stop. getting mad at that. And on this side of this journey, I can say, you can't expect one doctor to have all the answers for you, especially when you have the layers that I had. It wasn't just tick-borne illness. There were layers upon layers upon layers that I had to treat and learn how to deal with. In fact, my triggering items, I think I probably carried the bacteria, although we'll never really know, well before my symptoms came on. But the triggers that we found out for me were mold infestation and Wi-Fi.
Who'd have thought Wi-Fi? I mean, and mold in that combination. Huh.
Yeah. We were living in mold-infested dormitories. I was having trouble there anyway. We knew there was something in the air. I didn't know the impact it really had on me until, just within the last 3 years. And then for the first time, we had Wi-Fi. And a lot of people are struggling with the electromagnetic fields that are now in our daily lives nonstop.
So you found those two triggers. So you're avoiding to be near Wi-Fi and you try to live in a mold-free environment.
Correct. Yes. Very challenging, especially given my home base is Las Vegas, which is, electronics 24/7. And so unfortunately, I cannot spend much time there anymore. And we spent about 5 years looking for places that I felt better and where I could get my health to start improving.
So when you think about that, you shared with me that you recognized an illness within your husband's daughter. You said, "Hey, that looks familiar." What happened there?
As I was going through the journey I was in, I often kept the attitude that, hey, this is happening for a reason, even if I don't know why, but it's happening for a reason. And in, what year was it? Maybe 2016, late 2016, maybe even 17. My husband's youngest daughter, who had been very active, very physically active. She was in tennis, basketball, track. She was in 4-H, just very upbeat kind of girl. Started having some pretty significant but widespread symptoms. Pain in her knee joints, a little bit of fatigue, abdominal pain issues. And it wasn't until she started experiencing depression that I put all these things together, and I was just curious. It appeared to me like she was suffering from a tick-borne illness. And unfortunately, we didn't see her that often because she lives with her mother during the school year. And so it took me about 1.5 years to recognize and realize, I think we need to get her tested. And so we did. And sure enough, she came back positive for one of the co-infections of tick-borne illness, which is called Babesia. And it's actually a red blood cell parasite. So at that point, I had been through my journey with the infectious disease doctor, and I knew where we needed to take her. We took her to an infectious disease doctor where she lived, close to where she lived. And I knew the politics behind tick-borne illness. I knew the struggle it was for people to get care, but I hadn't been faced with it face to face yet. And at that appointment where we walked in with a positive lab result for Babesia and asked that infectious disease doctor, who, oh, by the way, happened to be an instructor at a university, we asked him for his help in starting to get her treatment for tick-borne illness. We had a very brief discussion with him, and he told us tick-borne illness does not exist. Lyme disease isn't real. It does not exist.
Oh, it's only in your head?
Well, he didn't even go that far, although he did tell us we needed to take her to a psychologist, which, I've been through it all. I know that this will come out, especially as a female. And when he said tick-borne illness doesn't exist, I was like, for me, I was able to emotionally disconnect because, if you go to the CDC website, Lyme disease is there. And in fact, the CDC recognized that, hey, we're only getting about 10% of the cases. And in reality, there's about 400,000 new cases that are happening every year.
Yeah. Oh my God, this is like, you must be just thinking, okay, I'm going to just bang my head against the wall. Here's a specialist who should know a lot more and dismisses it.
Yeah, I had gotten to the point where I didn't need to get that involved with that. I was shocked because, I had already been through my treatment, rounds and rounds of antibiotics, other kinds of things to help. And so we had resources to be able to take her elsewhere. And that's what we did. We took her to Las Vegas to my infectious disease doctor. Unfortunately, in her case, the lab testing through IGeneX, which is right now the most exacting lab test for tick-borne illness, it came back negative as well. All of the clinical symptoms were there for her. And so in my research, I had actually found a doctor who did a different kind of treatment called Lyme Stop. And we immediately made appointments for both her and I there. And we both have been through that treatment, which to date has been the most effective treatment that I have had for tick-borne illness. And she is well on her way to recovery from going to having to be wheeled into high school in a wheelchair because she cannot walk, to now she is able to play tennis 2 days a week again. It has been dramatic and, life-changing for her. But yeah, back to the original question and where I felt I had been going through the journey for a reason. It was at that point, and even now I get emotional about it, that when I could recognize it in her and help her get the treatment she needed so she did not have to suffer for the almost 10 years that I did, okay, my journey was worth it.
This is amazing that you could help her, because it's, like you said, you're dealing with a medical system that's not helping, that dismisses us and says, well, just suck it up, girl. Or it doesn't exist. And you feel so dismissed and something is wrong.
Oh, yeah. And everyone, I think that's important too. Everyone needs to trust their own body. You know the difference between when you're stressing out about an event and when something is physically going on. Yeah. The doctor that told me you miss your kids, well, I had been deployed before. I had been to combat. I had spent many days away from the kids. And even when she told me that, I was on the phone with them every morning, which was afternoon for them. And I was listening to them and talking to them about their day. I was sending them care packages almost every week or every 2 weeks. And so we had a very good relationship.
So what are some steps that you would suggest that somebody take when they're diagnosed with a tick-borne illness?
Wow. That is a very, very difficult place to be. And the first thing they want to do is start researching tick-borne illness information through an organization called ILADS, the International Lyme and Associated Diseases Society. And they definitely want to find a provider who is affiliated with ILADS. Oftentimes, they will be referred to as a Lyme literate medical doctor, because this disease is so complicated. The doctors that are going to be able to help you with that are pretty much devoting their lives to that. All right, after you, or even along with the time when you start working with a Lyme literate medical doctor, you're going to want to educate yourself. And this actually can start as soon as you receive your diagnosis. Dr. Horowitz has a great book, How Can I Get Better? And that is very, very good when you're dealing with conventional medicine, infectious disease doctors, because Dr. Horowitz straddles the line between the pharmaceuticals and the herbs and other kinds of options to pursue when trying to treat a tick-borne illness. And then there's a Connie Strassheim book, and I don't remember the exact title of it, but it has to do with 10 novel treatments for Lyme disease. And that is actually where I had read about Dr. Smith, who does the Lyme Stop treatment. So educate yourself. Yeah, and then you've got it. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
We're putting the links in the show notes so people can find where the resources are that you just mentioned throughout so far in the podcast. and that helps them. Or, of course, also reach out to you in case they have specific questions. But it's good to have a little, some resources, like you said, where they can go and say, hey, where can I get good information?
That is key. Information is power.
Yeah. So what are 3 things that women can do on their own when they're experiencing health issues and want to take control of their life?
Yeah, so on your own, nutrition is the foundation. So the 3 things I would say is nutrition, sleep, and energy drainers. So I'll explain those a little bit more. With nutrition, it's the foundation, and you can heal a lot of chronic illness just through nutrition. So the couple things I recommend in that realm that people can look into is the Whole30 eating plan. And that one helps people identify what foods are really not good for them. The Bulletproof plan is helping for people to increase or improve their performance. Time-restricted eating is another one that helps your body do its natural functions. And I think that the max benefit you can get from that is if you restrict your eating to just 8 hours a day. And so then 16 hours a day, you are not intaking food, you're still drinking water. And then intermittent fasting is amazing way to help your body heal. And for me, with the nutrition realm, that didn't really give me the max benefit until I started learning how to do energy testing. So people can look into that and figure out whether that's an avenue they can pursue. Mm-hmm. And then sleep. Sleep is critical for your body to obviously do its functions, to be able to repair itself, and to give you the energy you need for your next day's events. A couple of things you can do in that realm. Shut your screens off, your electronic screens, about an hour prior to bedtime, and either do something else where you're not required to look at a screen, or get some glasses that can protect you from the blue light that keeps you awake. Mm-hmm. Shut your Wi-Fi off at night. That, believe it or not, is a big disruptor to sleep. So if you can shut that Wi-Fi off at night, you may have to wire up your house. That can be a real help. You can also put red light lamps in your room, or a red light lamp. So during the day, in the morning when you wake up, you turn on the light that is the white light, helps you wake up. And at night, you turn on the lamp that's the red light, and it helps your body get ready for sleep. Epsom salt baths are great ways to get your body to relax before you go to bed. And then also the temperature, the right temperature for sleeping for you. Experts, they'll recommend below 68 degrees, I think. I'll tell you what, I can't sleep below about 73. I freeze all night long. So it's really finding the right temperature for you and for your body. And the last thing people can do on their own is just identify the energy drainers. Things like Wi-Fi, potentially, that can impact a lot of people. Relationships, are there unhealthy relationships that they should get out of, move on from? What about their job? Is it something that they need to change? Pets and responsibilities that they can shed because they're energy drainers and not enhancing their life. So those 3 things, nutrition, sleep, and identifying energy drainers, are all things that we can do on our own to improve our situation.
These are such good tips. And they're not just good for somebody with health issues. They're so good for everybody else, too.
That's true. When you're suffering from health issues, you just want to be able to perform better.
Yeah, because when you think about midlife, menopause, no sleep, not being able to function, it's like all this is fasting is just, these are great tips all around, Chandra.
Oh, thank you. Thank you.
So how do you stay fit and healthy despite all these health issues?
Yeah, it's a challenge. It is a lot of time dedicated to self-care, right? I get up in the morning and I have to do yin yoga every morning. That's actually been a great pain reliever for me. Mm-hmm. Nutrition, like I said, is the foundation. Sleep, which is an ongoing battle for anyone fighting with a chronic illness, and specifically tick-borne illnesses. Those are some of the key factors that I have to do. And just realizing when you're pushing yourself too far. Yeah.
Yeah, because we all tend to do more than we should because we think we could and not take care of ourselves.
Yes, we undervalue the rest and relaxation portion of what our bodies need.
Yeah. Now you're moving into a different direction with your profession. What are you up to?
I am. Yes, I went through this journey and I am turning it around to help other people. So I am enrolled right now in a life coaching course through the Human Potential Institute. And I am going to be a coach for those that have to go through or are going through anything in their life, really. You know, obviously I have an extensive experience in the health background, but that is an endeavor that I'm really, really excited about. I'm passionate about. And you can check it out at my website, chandrabeckman.com. And I look forward to that aspect and that phase of life where I can give back to society again, because, you know, for at least these last 3 years, it's been very difficult for me not to be able to function and feel like I'm contributing.
Yeah, that's so exciting, a step forward. I love it. So, Chandra, how can people reach you and learn more about you?
Hey, they can go to my website, chandrabeckman.com. And actually, on the resources link on that website, I have listed everything that we talked about today. So they can find more information there for themselves too.
Awesome. Super information. Thank you so much for being here. It was a pleasure talking to you today.
Thank you for having me.
So what do you think? Wasn't this an incredibly and inspiring story? I'm so honored to be able to share Chandra's story with you. Please reach out to her and perhaps hire her as your coach to help you deal with Lyme disease. We have a link in the show notes for you and an extensive resource list that she put together to help you find help. And if this is not for you, share this episode with anybody that you know that might benefit from her knowledge and from what we shared in the show today. You can reach out to me on Instagram at Heike Yates or the Pursue Your Spark podcast and let me know how this show helped you and how today's episode inspired you to take action when it comes to your health. So I'll see you next time on the Pursue Your Spark podcast. And in our next episode, we're talking all things accountability. Do we need accountability? What is accountability? And why can accountability be supportive in our goals that we set? So with that, until next time, have an amazing day. Ciao.